Okay, Manuela, please. You're mute.
And I cannot share. I don't know why. But let me try again.
Okay. Send.
Okay.
Can you send?
Yeah.
Now
okay.
you can. Okay.
Yes, I can. Okay, thank you. Muito boa tarde a todos. Espero que estejam todos bem. Do not worry, I'm not going to speak in Portuguese, but I'm very, very pleased to be here with Pernil and with all of our group, because it was really a welcome invitation from Eurodis. Thank you to Eurodis to invite us to share this practice on the flowchart of lymphedema. So to the points that we are going to cover in our during our presentation, it's more or less the introduction of VASCERN and specifically about our group, which is the pediatric and primary lymphedema working group. And we are going to speak about lymphedema. Do not worry, we are not going to speak a lot about lymphedema. And about cellulitis, which is the main point of our flowchart. And then I pass to Pernil, my colleague. She's going to zoom into the flowchart and the idea, how it comes, the methods, and also the process and the dissemination, and the next steps that we intend to go ahead, and also a summary on it. So first of all, as Lenia told you, me and Pernil, we are working in VASCERN. This is our very, very first face-to-face photo. It was in 2019, September, and we start working since then quite a lot. Before that and after that, quite a lot. Pernil is the co-chair of our group. She's also in the DALIFO, which is the Association for Lymphedema and Lipedema in Denmark. And I'm from Portugal, and I'm the co-chair. And in Portugal, I try to find out the best solution as well for patients with lymphedema and lipedema, and also vascular rare disease through my association and Lympha. So we work in VASCERN. VASCERN is a European reference network for rare multisystem vascular disease. We are 48 expert teams from 38 specialized HCPs, and we came from 19 European member states. We in this European reference network are 17, not around, but are 17 until now, always growing, 17 patient organizations across Europe. Here you can see on your left-hand side the group of a small group of the ePAGs that are working there, and all it was during the meeting that we had last year on Paris, and next week we are going to Paris again to meet again each other. And the VASCERN is working in 6 different groups. We have 6 different diseases, and the PPL, it's one of the disease that we are working on. We are working on lymphedema, primary lymphedema and pediatric lymphedema. We have also 4 transversal working groups. One of them is pregnancy, another one is for patient registry. We also have the communication team, and we also have a work about ethics. So 28 countries covered, including affiliated partners and UK. So in pediatric and primary lymphedema, our patient advocates community is in 14 countries. Okay, around 16 associations, and also we are also 6 patient advocates. We are, oops, sorry, something is wrong here. Okay, I'm not going to talk about me and Pernil, but I'm going to speak about Eileen Oxter. She works very hard in Holland and also with us. and Elena Mata, she is from Italy, and she works with Lymphedema, which is an association focused on children. And Karina Maika from Germany, she is a mother who works in Germany with the kids 11. And now we have also with us Alan Pardal from the Association Vivre Mieux Lymphedema. He is French. He is not a patient. He is a husband who cares about the illness of his wife. And our method of work and our communication, it's completely almost 24 hours per day, because we work so much. We have a lot of in WhatsApp groups. We have a lot of emails. We are always discussing what is the best, what is not the best, how can we do the things, and not only in VASCERN with the ePAGs, but also with our working groups and also with our community. For instance, we also go to Rare Connected, and also behind of that, we also speak in conferences in our countries and among the world about our work here in VASCERN. And I'm talking about lymphedema. I don't know if you know what it is, but if you think about our vascular system, we have in that vascular system the lymphatic system, and lymphedema is a chronic disease. It is progressive, and it's very, very persistent, very uncomfortable for those who have them, and it has no cure until now. And we have a persistent swelling of arms, of legs, or of any part of our bodies. So it is a disease. It is divided in primary lymphedema and secondary lymphedema. And here we are talking about primary lymphedema because this is a lymphatic malformation, and it is a rare disease. Here are some examples of what is lymphedema looks like. We have here children, for instance. Pascal is from Holland. He has lymphedema not only in his arms, but in all around his body. And we have Leonor from Portugal. She has lymphedema in both legs. But Mimi from France, she has only one leg. So that means also that gives you an idea that lymphedema is not a symmetric illness, and sometimes even like Paul, it is very hard to see that he is lymphedema. Okay, and we don't have any cure, as I told you, but we have a treatment. We have to be very, very careful about our skin. We have to also always use our compressions every time, every moment. The compression is 4 hours a day, and I sometimes 48 hours a day. We have to do manual lymphatic drainage. We have keeping a healthy weight. For some special of us, we have also special diets, and we have sometimes, if it is possible, but that depends, surgery as well. So the point that we are making this a webinar, it's because for us, it's very, very serious to have cellulitis or erysipelas. And cellulitis is a common and potential serious bacterial skin infection. Sometimes can come for instance, for sepsis. And we can, you have here different examples of cellulitis, one more hard and one more light, and different areas of the body. So the clinicians, they always point out these the erysipelas or the cellulitis as high fevers like 40 until 40 degrees, and it happens with a very uncomfortable way of being. We feel very, very uncomfortable indeed, and the fever goes high and high. And of course, when we have erysipelas, it can happen to all of us. And here you can see the point of view of the clinicians, that the scope of the problems. They point out that sometimes 17, sorry, not sometimes, but between 15 and 79% had cellulitis in the last 12 months, which is, that points out a very important point. And also some of episodes of cellulitis are associated when we have one episode, it can mean that we can have different times the cellulitis. We, in our point of view, we just ask the patients what they feel about the word cellulitis, what they feel about the word erysipelas, what are their experience. For instance, in Denmark, we made a poll, and 61% have not been informed that they can have cellulitis. And in Portugal, for instance, 18 are afraid of getting cellulitis. But I also feel that the information for them is also very important. In Germany, when Karina spoke with the parents, they are always worried about cellulitis, and it is a very concerning for them. And Eileen, when she asked spoke with the patients in Holland, 29% had the experience of cellulitis more than 10 times. So this is really, really a really big concern. And as you see, our team are working about the best information. Now I'm going to pass leave the stage to Pernille. She's going to explain you how important this is for the patients and how we are going to work on it.
Thank you, Manuela.
Thank you.
Mamma mia, che schifo.
Hello, I think somebody's not muted. Thank you. Thank you, Manuela. Thank you for this background information on lymphedema and cellulitis. Okay. So what do we already have in the to support the patients in the PPL working group? Well, we already have a collection of assets about cellulitis. We have a Pills of Knowledge video with a clinician in English. We have do's and don'ts on cellulitis in English. We also have a skincare do's and don'ts, because skincare is very important as a preventative measure for cellulitis. And this is something that we have done recently and also translated in more languages. And then we have a webinar, which was done a year ago with 2 clinicians and 2 patients, also including frequently asked questions from the patients. So these are things that we already have available to us. So what was missing? If we have all this information, what's the missing part? So what we were really missing was something that combined all the most important information. And we also wanted something which was tangible. I kind of put it in like goosebumps like this, because it was something to bring in your handbag and for traveling. So it's something that, you know, people could take with them and not just have online. It had to be easy to read, easy to understand, and it had to address some of the myths that we encounter in our patient community. And it had to be in local language, because a lot of the information available is in English. And as you saw from the collection of ePAGs we are all from a non-English mother tongue country. So for us, this was important. So really from this patient need, this scope of this huge problem we have with cellulitis, we are all very, very dedicated to informing patients about the risks of cellulitis and about how to prevent them, how to treat it. And we understood it was still such a problem that people don't have access to information. They're not given the information by the clinicians, by the doctor, by the GP, or they are met in the A&E with misunderstanding of this issue. It might also be that they don't understand the connection between lymphedema and cellulitis, because in theory everybody can get cellulitis, this skin infection, but we are much higher risk of getting it, and it progresses much faster, and it also makes our lymphedema worse. So this is the problem behind it. So with a lot of discussions and with a lot of groundwork, with a lot of patience and time and good sprinkle of creativity, this is how we have gone forward to developing this flowchart. So this is the process. So really based on the, from the bottom, the patient need, understanding this need and the scope of the problem, how big it was. This we all understood, this what we already knew. And then we moved on to starting collecting all the information that we had already, perhaps also from different countries, what was already available, what could be, kind of deduct from the things that we had already, the resources, the assets. And then there were all the discussions and the creation of the format and the layout. And this was kind of like, in the beginning, it was very much, it was ePAG led. It was us, who was like, this was our problem. This is what we wanted. We wanted this kind of resource. And so once we kind of had it, as, more in mind about how it had to look, then we approached the clinicians, and then doing several working group meetings. We discussed it via emails, but I must say the biggest mover of this project was a meeting in Paris. We had a VASCERN meeting in Paris where there was a dedicated slot for this, and so we kind of like had a real good working meeting, went through all the information, went through the whole flowchart. And we discussed each single part of it, for and against. What do you want? What do you want? What do you think? And in this way, it was really, this was such a great meeting, and really moved the whole project forward. Then once we had all the information, we found out how it had to look and the layout and everything. Then we went through the validation process, and how it works for us is that it's in English. So the first document is always in English, and then all the clinicians sign it off. So we sign it off as patients. All the clinicians sign it off, and we really make sure that everybody is happy. And then we might have let's say a final version. And then when that final version goes through to everybody, we might have again something that, oh, well, what about this? What about that? And then we go back again. So this is why we have this like recycled thing, is because even though we might be at the final version, there's always room perhaps to just change it. And then we go through the process once more. So it's a very rigorous process. And at this point, we also have support from the coordination team, because they, of course, they have all they know all about the layout. They want, the logos and all those kind of things. So they were part of the process as well. And also because none of us ePAGs are mother tongue English, and there was one in the coordination team. So we had support for this as well. So this was really helpful, and essential. It was really essential for this. So once we are done with the English version, we have it all done, it's all corrected, then we move on to the translation part. And this is another process just as in itself. So what we do is each ePAG takes their mother tongue language and translates it. And then if there is a mother tongue clinician in the working group, then they sign that translation off. If there is no mother tongue clinician, then that ePAG goes back to their patient association and work with the clinicians who are collaborating with their patient association. So in this way, there's always a clinician involved in signing off the translation, a clinician who is also, of course, an expert in lymphedema. So this is very important for us. It's very important that all the information has been signed off and that we know that is correct, medically correct. And so then it goes back to the coordination team, the ERN coordination team, because then they put in the front page, the last page, the names, and all of those kind of things, and makes it into a PDF format, puts it on the website, and so forth. So so we all have different roles, but and we are all important in the process, the advocates, the clinicians, and the coordination team. Normally we have, because the English version is kind of like the first validated and approved version, this will be available on the website first, but otherwise we try to coordinate the local language translations in such ways that we are all launching it at the same time. And it might be that we have, so Manuela took care of, I think this one. So we have one, either it's me or Manuela, who takes care of the coordination of all the languages for an asset, whether it's a do's and don'ts or this flowchart, and make sure that the process has been followed. We are very rigorous with the process, and then we send it back to the coordination team for them to put on the website. So I know this sounds like a very long process, and it is, but we absolutely feel this is necessary for the success of the resources. Oops, sorry. Okay, so the collaboration between the clinician and the patients is really to ensure that it's medically correct, that it's evidence-based, that it's up-to-date, and it's relevant. So sometimes, as I said before, is that we want to make it really simple, and sometimes you're like you don't want to oversimplify it, but on the other hand, you don't want to write too much. So really, we want to make everything relevant for whatever content we're trying to produce. We want it to be inclusive. Of course, this is one of our big, flagships. We want to make it very inclusive for everybody, needs-based, of course, as I'd said before, and patient-centered. So this is a picture of us, of some of the clinicians and some of the patients participating in the VASCERN days last year. Yeah. So this is the creative journey that we took. Version 1, and I had to look it up. I just checked the files to see when was the version 1 created. And in fact, it was the 3rd of May, 2021. And just to say that the final version in English was launched on the 4th of March, 2022. So it took nearly a year. So just to say, it was a long process. But as you can see, version 1, it was very much mirrored to our patient pathway. So we had these big blocks of color and this, flowchart idea. So that was kind of like the idea from the beginning, that we kind of thought, okay, there could be some kind of creative look that mirrored the pathway. And then, as you see, as I said, some version we call 2 because there was a lot of versions in between. And then the final version, which looks, quite a lot like version 2, but obviously much neater and cuter, and has more and better information, and has some changes too. That I will explain why we did those changes from version 2, apart from the information on it. If I go too fast, please can people just, say too fast? Okay. So the flowchart has been divided into 3 steps. So the first step is about signs and symptoms for cellulitis. So how do you recognize this? Because a lot of patients don't really know if they have never had cellulitis. Once you've had cellulitis, you know for sure. But if you haven't had it before, you need to know the signs and the symptoms. So if you look at the left-hand side of the flowchart, you will see it says here signs and symptoms. So that's one part: treatment, here, second part, and prevention here on the side, third part. So the top part is really recognizing those signs and symptoms, but also saying that not all signs and symptoms come at the same time, come for a patient, or come each time you have cellulitis. So it's really important to actually know all of them, because they can manifest in different ways each time. And then here we have at the bottom, once you have recognized these things, then a diagnosis is confirmed by a medical professional. So that's important, because the treatment part is to have antibiotics quickly. So this is very important, that patients are given antibiotics quickly. And this is sometimes being stalled in some countries, because either of course, in Europe, we're trying to decrease the use of antibiotics. But for us, it's really essential that we get it. But not everything, not all red legs are cellulitis. So we really need to also educate the patients that just because you have a red leg or because you have, some pain, it might not be cellulitis. So there's lots of different ways of educating also the patients with this. So it's not just the treatment regarding antibiotics, but it's also your self-management treatments. And then one of the myths we are trying to address is this whole thing about compression, wearing or not wearing compression when you have cellulitis. And then, of course, for those patients, there are some patients who have recurrent cellulitis. So you can have cellulitis perhaps once or twice a year, or once every 5 years, or you might never have cellulitis. And then there are some patients who have it every 3 months or every month. And so there are different treatment options for them. And they need to address this with, again, their doctor, with their GP. And then the third part is all about the prevention, because we want to prevent as much as possible having cellulitis, because as I said before, the more often you get cellulitis, the higher risk you have of getting cellulitis again. So the key points are really wearing your compression, keeping a healthy weight, taking care of your skin, and watching out for anything that can, where you can have a wound. So bites, scratches, mosquito bites, and things like that. So this is the steps in the flow chart. So some of the considerations we had regarding how it looks and what's included in the flow chart is the layout. We wanted A4, because that's, everybody has, A4, and a one-pager, because often if you have more pages, second page get lost, or people can't be bothered to read the second page. So we wanted as much information on one page without being too cramped. People, you might say, oh, it's already a bit, there's a lot of information on here. Yes, that's true. But we're thinking every single thing we put on here, there's a purpose for that. The language had to be really short sentences and bullet points. And I'm just talking about the language as in itself, but it also, and this is a learning point we made previously also, is that sometimes something sounds really good in English, but then when you have to translate it, it's really difficult. It doesn't really translate back. So I think what we've learned now is that when we do create resources, is to think about, if each of us are thinking about it in our own local language, it might change the way we write it in English. I hope this is clear. And I think this is something we really learned from one of the do's and don'ts, that doing this kind of like back translation, thinking, how can I translate in Danish or in Portuguese or whatever? And then does that reflect on how I will write it in English? So that's a learning point for sure. And then translations, we wanted, what kind of language, because that's the other thing. Some languages are very long. There's a lot of text to say the same thing in English. English is a great language and you can say a lot in one word, but sometimes you miss those words in another language. So again, thinking about it from this perspective, we only have so much space. So we had to, how big can the boxes be? So for example, I think for Dutch, we had to, make them a little bit bigger. So Colors, that's a real big thing, because if you remember the first version, there was a lot of block colors, and that's not great when you want to print, and people might not have a color printer, or they might go like, oh my God, I don't want to print this because there's too much color. Or if they have to photocopy it, then the colors is just that you miss it out. And also for those who have color vision deficiency. So all of these considerations regarding color. So it might look great with lots of colors online, but when you then start thinking about the practicalities, it's better just to keep less color. Then we have little pictograms, and we use the stethoscopes every time the patients need to address that point with a medical professional. So instead of writing, talk to your doctor about this, or I think we have one, consult with your doctor, but otherwise we try to say, okay, this stethoscope means that you need to, this is something that needs to be addressed by a medical professional. So that was the way we got rid of some text by using a pictogram. And then links, so links and QR codes. So at the bottom, there are links. If you are online and you click the document, that will bring you directly to the VASCERN YouTube channel, or to the website. So you can click directly, or if you have printed it out, then the QR codes will also take you there. So in this way, we make sure that we report back to all the assets that we have, because we want people to see all of it, because this was just one part, but there's so much other great information that we have, and we want everybody to read everything there is about cellulitis. So so this is important as well. Also, if they do print it out, and because patients print it out and leave it with a clinician, then they can easily also find that background information, the references, who are these clinicians who have been part of this flowchart. So it actually also puts a little bit of a stamp of approval on it by having this QR code. And of course, the coordination team helped with the getting all the logos and the colors and making sure that was all correct. Okay, coming back to the language. Currently available in English, French, German, Portuguese, Dutch, Danish, Swedish, and Italian. And I'm sure, I see that lots of you are from non-English speaking countries. And so, of course, I'm assuming that you also think it's very important to have in local language these resources. And for us, it's really about inclusivity, because a lot of patients with rare diseases, they struggle to find information which is relevant and correct in their local language. For us in lymphedema, there are lots of information in English, which also relates back to either US sites or US guidelines or UK, but we need it to be also local, local as in the country or local as in Europe. So this is important. Also because we are using medical terms, and it's important that patients, they know like what is cellulitis in their own language, because I realize sometimes when you say cellulitis, people are like, is it cellulite? No, it's not cellulitis. Cellulitis is an infection. So it's very important that the words that the patients are using in their own country, is that what they can recognize on these kind of resources. And for traveling, if you travel, and I mean, of course, you could bring something like this to in English, but if you are traveling to a different country, and you don't speak the language, you want to make sure that the medical professional that you meet, who might not know about lymphedema, that they can easily read this and it's correct. It's not something you translated on Google Translate yourself. It's something which is has been approved and is correct information in their language. Because as I said before, it's not everybody knows how the connection between cellulitis and lymphedema. So it's very important that we get this information to the doctor when they see a patient with cellulitis. I've tried it myself, being in a different country, trying to explain, I have lymphedema, what is lymphedema? And then you go through the process, you just don't have time for this. And also for safety, because it can be that you're really, really ill. It can be that you're very sick and you're brought to an A&E and you're trying to get your partner or your travel companion to explain to a medical professional about this problem. And they might not know all the things about it. So this is why it's relevant and important to have it in these languages. I'm sorry, I really hammer on about the local language thing. It's very important for us for this purpose. So how was this disseminated? So of course, social media, it's huge. We used all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. So the VASCERN coordination team, they used their own platforms on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And you can see the first launch, I think it was about more than 1,500 people saw it on the VASCERN Facebook page. So that was very good. And then all the patient associations and the patient advocates have been sharing the whatever version of it as well, either English or local language on their own social media platform. And then for us with lymphedema, there are lots of Facebook groups in the different countries, and we see all the time the same questions. Should I wear my compression when I have cellulitis? Is this cellulitis? Why do I keep getting cellulitis? We have all those kind of questions. And for us, it's great. Now we can just kind of answer with the flowchart, read this flowchart, check this flowchart, this. And so for us as advocates, it's a great way of disseminating the information in a easy way. And then, of course, everywhere else, everybody want to hear about this, they will hear about the flowchart. So it, of course, added the links, or the document has been added to the websites of the associations. You see here an example of a newsletter that Manuela has been sending out, where she wrote about this flowchart, and also the other assets, so the webinar and the pills of knowledge and so on. And when we have questions from patients to the associations, we can also reply with the document, with the link. It just makes it so much easier. Of course, presenting at webinars and conferences. I have also handed out paper copies at workshop. So last weekend I was at a workshop for the LUFO, and I just handed out the Danish version to all the participants. And then we encourage patients also to print out a copy and give it to the GP, so they also know about it. So to raise the general awareness. And then some of the associations, they have also printed membership magazines, and also there it has been and will be included. So you see, there's so many ways to disseminate this. So what are the next steps? Well, we're just going to keep sharing with patients to raise awareness, both on how to identify the signs and symptoms and how to prevent cellulitis. We're going to review it when new guidelines or new efforts come forward, or if we're inspired by something, or the patient feedback. If they say, oh, you missed this, or this could be more clear, well, then we'll review it. More translations for sure. We are missing both Western and Eastern European languages. And as you understood from the process on how we do the translations, we need to get those ePAGs or those patient associations involved with those kind of translations. So yeah, so we need that kind of support. And of course, it's part of our ongoing awareness campaign with clinicians regarding this connection between this complication and lymphedema. So in summary, this is what we learned is listen to the patients. What are the needs? So this is the core. Have the goal in mind while going through the process. You know, sometimes you're like, oh my God, are we ever going to finish this? As I said, we started in May 2021 and got the English version in March, and then afterwards the local language translations. I think what we learned really is, I think we'll be more perhaps stringent with the process. We're going to learn, we have definitely learned a lot from this process. So hopefully next time it won't take so long. So keep working at it, have patience. You just got to have patience. We are a lot of people involved, lots of ideas, lots of viewpoints. And then this is important, because otherwise we cannot be so inclusive if we don't have so many people. So you can't have one thing without the other thing. So we just need to be patient and keep working on it. And as again, you know, we just have to ask people, what do you think about this? Would you have other ideas? So we can make sure that that it's correct and inclusive. So thank you very much for joining us today. I hope I didn't speak too fast. I know this is, you know, it wasn't, if only I could have sped through the flowchart this quickly, but you know, you learn. So thank you very much.
That was perfect, Pernille and Manuela. Thank you so much. I really think it's this project, this flowchart can serve as a fantastic inspiration for other ePAG advocates and ERNs. Very interesting. You were a bit fast when I was curious to learn a little bit more about the myth and how you address them, to hear maybe one or two examples. You mentioned the compression, how do you call them?
Just compression, yeah.
Just compression.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, to maybe hear one or two more of these examples, and also maybe a little bit more about how you collaborated with the clinicians. Well, you explained very well the complex process of the translations and how clinicians were involved, but also in the process of developing the initial flowchart. For example, when you met in Paris, did you invite clinicians to the meeting? Or maybe you mentioned that and I missed it, but that would be interesting for me. And then there are a few questions in the chat as well. For example, Sue
Should I start with, sorry, can we take your questions first?
Yes,
or?
of course.
Okay. So one of the myths that we were trying to debunk was this point about wearing your compression, whether it's bandages or stocking or sleeves or what it is, while you have cellulitis. There is this idea that when you have an infection, that then when you put compression on, then it spreads the infection, and it's a widespread. You know, people believe this because doctors say it, and it's just, and also if you think about it, it just makes sense that if you press something in, then it goes deeper, and then it spreads. But there's no evidence to support this. So what we've done is just because it's difficult to say there is no evidence to say this, da 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 da. So you need to be short. So we just said, once you are started your antibiotics treatment, wear it as soon as possible as you can tolerate it, because you have a very sensitive skin, it might hurt. So while being let's say, sensitive to this, that people can have pain, but it's also important because if they don't start wearing the compression quickly enough, their edema will be bigger. So, and then it will be more difficult to get back into the compression. So, yeah, so that was one thing. And the other question was how we did in Paris. So it was a point on the agenda. And so, I think Manuela and I, we were by the screen, and then writing, yes, okay, next person, okay, what do you say? And then like this, it was literally like a working document, and then we were working through all the things together, the clinicians and the patients. Yeah.
Pernille, could you stop sharing, please? Thank you.
Great, thank you, Pernille. That's very interesting. I'm just going to go back to the chat to see, because there were some questions. Sue is asking, did you have the help of a graphic designer for this?
No.
You mentioned the coordination team.
No, we did this ourselves. So as you see, version 2 is, I think that's something we did in the group, putting the boxes together. And then afterwards, the coordination team, they fixed the other bits and bobs. Yeah, Natasha helped us with that.
It was a great help from her.
Great. There's another comment. This is excellent information. Thank you so much. My daughter has Turner syndrome and had a very severe cellulitis as a child in her left foot. She has also had cellulitis in her face. We will share this with Endo-ERN and our many friends across Europe.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What do you think about Flowtron boots? It's another question in the chat.
I think this is this like a cooling boot?
Aline.
I don't.
There's Aline.
Well, I explain? So my daughter had a very severe cellulitis as a child, and because they just elevated the foot and the infection just stayed. So eventually a physiotherapist went to the adult hospital and got this Flowchart boot. It's like a big yellow Wellington boot, and it inflates and compresses and inflates and compresses. So it's used mainly for the elderly. But we found it very successful to get rid of the infection because it was just sitting, wasn't going anywhere. And it helped get rid of it and allowed her to be mobile again. And then eventually in time it cleared. And she was a gymnast. So we borrowed a Flowchart boot when we went to America to take part in a competition because the lymphedema was so bad. It kept it under control. I just wondered whether anybody had any other experience on it.
I think if you have an active, as I remember, if you have an active cellulitis, I don't think a pneumatic compression pump is recommended, but I'm not sure. So she was under treatment with antibiotics, or?
Yeah. She had 21. They couldn't find an antibiotic that worked. She had 21 days of antibiotics, and the one that worked was called imipenem, which is a tissue antibiotic, but her foot was black. I mean, it was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. Her CRP level for the infection was 489. It was the worst they'd ever seen. Nobody knew what to do. It was really an awful time. They were talking about amputating her leg. It was bad. So but, this is so valuable.
Because they didn't know because they didn't understand the connection with the lymphedema. Was that the problem? Yeah.
So they were treating them as two separate problems. So, but this is absolutely wonderful work. I can't thank you enough. I think it's fantastic what you've done, and it will help so many people. So really well done to all of you. Thank you.
Sorry, can I ask where are you from? Are you?
So I'm from the Turner Syndrome Support Society UK. I'm an ePAG on the endocrine EIN. But I'm also president of the Turner's International Group, so I'll share this with the international Turner's community as well. We will print off copies and make sure people can get them. So thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Ines, you have your hand raised.
Yes.
You have a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you, Manuela, and thank you, Pernille, for presenting this. I love it. And sorry, because I was on another call, so I joined a little bit late. So maybe you covered this. I was wondering whether, because you said that you worked with the clinicians on this, and I was wondering whether there is when you started developing it, where there was any evidence or a consensus statement or something that the clinicians would kind of use in order to decide what should go in and what type of recommendations and the wording. And the second thing is, if at any stage you engage with experts that are not part of the ERN, so with external clinicians and experts to get their input also.
Okay, now I don't remember the first one, but the second question was the second. So in fact, Vaughan Keeley, who from the UK, he was on the call as well. So of course he was because of Brexit. So I suppose he was. Can you call that out of ERN or not? But anyway, he was part of the process as well, because in the UK they have done a lot of work on this subject. But otherwise, no, it was, I mean, we have so many great clinicians in the group. They are so knowledgeable and from so many different countries. So, yeah.
The other question is whether there was a consensus statement that you were, or did you start from scratch?
Well, to be honest, a lot of this information is stuff which is available. You know, so if you listen to the webinar, we cover all of this already. So this is like standard standard protocol, standard information, but we just combined it in this patient-friendly way. So yeah, so it wasn't like we weren't reinventing the guidelines or the recommendations. We were just pulling all this information together and making sure it was easy to understand.
And the QR code, the QR codes point to that published evidence, or yes?
No, the QR code. So one of them is for that for the YouTube channel. If you go to the webinar, there is all the references in the presentation that we did at the webinar. So yeah.
Cool.
Manuela, do you have more to say about this?
No, when Ines is asking about the collaborations of the clinician outside our group, of course, for instance, in Portugal, we don't have any clinician in the group. So for the translation, we ask that opinion, because cellulitis for us as Portuguese doesn't mean anything, you know, like in France, it's another word. So we have to make it very, very clear. If I translate from English to Portuguese, we don't know exactly what we are talking about. So this is the only thing that we ask for, because as Pernille said, all the clinicians inside, including the UK, they work with us, and it was really amazing. And thank you, Arnel, for disseminating. It's very important. We are not working just for us, we are working for all patients. So thank you very much for that, okay?
And just a quick question, Pernille and Manuela, are the other VASCERN patient representatives working on similar flowcharts, documents for their diseases? For the diseases that they represent?
I think some of them are, I don't know if some of them are present today, but perhaps they can say, I don't know. But it made sense that it was a flow chart for this, you know, it made sense the way we were. So, you know, it can be next time we have lots of other ideas for other things, which might not be in a flow chart, or it will be, you know, we will see. Yeah.
It's not a finished, it's always some
evolving.
It's missing a comma or a full stop or a question mark. Always.
Yeah. Rita, you have your hand up.
Yes. So first of all, thank you so much, and congratulations not only on the presentation but on this project. There are so many things that I find interesting and important about this project, but I would maybe just so that I don't dominate this Q&A, I'm just going to focus on one or two aspects, okay? So the first one I'd like to hear you on is the fact that you mentioned that you collected data from your wider patient communities. So you showed some data that you collected through some polls. So I would really like to hear more about that, how you reached out to your community, if they helped you, you know, pick this topic, this specific manifestation, this specific problem, how did you engage with them? And then also you have been talking about translations and making sure that the medical translations are faithful and that they are correct and valid. But in terms of language, did you also make any efforts to convert the language or to use a more plain language or layman or patient-friendly language? What was your process around that? Or is that something that you are considered to do in a future version? Because you also commented that this, of course, is an ever-evolving document because science and medicine are ever-evolving field. So of course, this document has to reflect that. So just throwing these ideas out there and looking forward to hearing your comments.
I don't know if you want to answer back, but about the translation, I have to say something. For us, it's very important. We don't Google translate. We don't DeepL translate. It's completely crazy to do that. And if we do that, we lost all the information all the through. Because it's for me, it's forbidden. Each time that something comes to me in Portuguese that is Google Translate or DeepL Translate, I said, oh my gosh, what shall I do with this? So first of all, that work must be very, 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 very careful. Otherwise, we are giving the wrong informations. We are not giving the right words for the right things, and this is not good. Of course, in my opinion, it must be very, very good that we have a person who is dedicated to translate, and then of course we can do some adjustments, but never Google or DeepL translate it. That's one of my points. But I'm sure that Cornelius is going to say something more.
No, I completely agree with Manuela. I think it's also when you have, I know that Manuela is different for different languages. Some things can be okay, you know, but not when you're talking about something which can be life-threatening to patients. Yeah, so I agree with Manuela.
About engagements. Well, we are always engaged with Rita, always. I don't know how many hours we spend on Facebook, on Instagram, in private groups, and not only in Europe, but all around the world, speaking about the things that we disseminate the work of VASCERN, not only in Europe, but everywhere where we have patients with lymphedema. We said, look at this, we did this. For instance, now in Brazil, they are a very large group. I'll go there and say, look, this is what we did in VASCERN, that is translated in Portuguese, please read. This is the good information. And we do it every day. Patients are very lazy, we know, but we are keeping saying, look at this, look at this, look at this. Maybe we say in Portuguese, água mole em pedra dura, tanto dá até que fura. I don't know how to say it in English, but maybe you can translate for them, Rita. And it's very, very important that we do it like that.
But could you, because you did, go ahead.
Yes, so I'll go ahead and say, so first of all, I mean, so because we are so connected with our patients, our patient communities in lots of different, as Amanda said, lots of different countries and different types of patients, because there are lots of different primary lymphedemas. There are you know, there's the children, and there are lots of different types of primary lymphedema as well. We are very very homogenic. We might have lymphedema, but we might not be very homogenic as a group, as a patient group. So regarding the polls, we do sometimes do little polls in Facebook, for example. It's very easy to collect this kind of information like that, and you know, asking a question. For example, you know, because this kind of information helps us, you know, direct in one or the other way. It can be lots of different things in this way that we collect information. It can be about what you want to know more about, or would you like you know, what kind of webinar would you like? What are the information that you're lacking in other resources? So this is just, and we know cellulitis is a huge problem already. It's one of the major complications of. So this was not. It wasn't a surprise. It's not like it's a surprise. Oh, so we knew this already, but the data the little data that we collected also showed a little bit more the things about being afraid, you know, that the things that you might not collect in scientific information, you know, not about the prevalence or, you know, length of stay in the hospital or cost to the hospital, but we were asking things like, so Manuela was asking her patients or Portuguese patients, like, are you afraid of cellulitis? I mean, if you're afraid, why is it? So is it because you don't know enough about it? Well, then let's find a way to give you this information. Is it because your doctor didn't tell you anything about it? Well, then let's make some information, share some information so you can share with your doctor about it. So do you see, this is the kind of, so it's like from the patient point of view, you know, we are afraid of this, you know, and we want to help you.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's, yeah. We all try. I mean, as you say, Arlene has tried it with her daughter. Manuel and I, we've been in. I mean, I'm sure if the other patients here with lymphedema, you know, if we haven't tried it, we are worried about it.
Great, thank you. Are there any? Oh, another comment in the chat from Teresa. In VASCERN, we share ideas and try to apply great ideas from other disease working groups in our own. This is one of Pernille's many great ideas. Okay. So you were the origin, Pernille.
She's also co-chair. Thank you, Teresa.
So Teresa, are you planning to do a flowchart as well?
Sorry, I don't have my camera on, but yes, we are planning to do a flow chart, but we're working on some other projects that we want to finish off first. we're working on a very interactive webinar project, which is also a new kind of webinar that hasn't been done before. So we're trying to see if that will work.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm so sorry to if I want to add something. I think in VASCERN, not only in VASCERN, we are in our group, but we also have the opportunity to share the other experience with us. And sometimes we think about what they are thinking. So this is the very important work that Pernille does when she works with the other co-chairs as well. So they share the experience and try to bring the experience inside. For instance, in Portugal, we are doing the same here. We are trying to do to share the experience that the other patient advocates are doing in the other ERNs. So we are not a highland, you know. We are a walls. So we have to be connected wherever it is. See Arlen here. She is not from our reference network, but this problem is connected with her, and this is very important. Okay, so maybe if we point out infections and we look in the other European reference networks where this problem is there, maybe our work doesn't stop here in the PPL group. Maybe our work can be disseminated for the others as well, and we can learn from the others as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So we're going to share the recording and the slides of this webinar. And if we receive some requests to connect with you, Pernille and Manuela, after the webinar to get some help in how to start something like this flowchart project, can we make the connection with you?
Sharing is caring, Lenya, so we're all for that.
Right. Great. Okay, very good. Any more? Manuela, you wanted to say something?
No.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay, then we'll finish a little bit ahead of time. As I said, we'll share everything with you, the recording with you and with all of the ePAG advocates and the ERN coordination teams. And yeah, if you want to connect with Pernille or Manuela, or you have any follow-up questions, do get in touch with us. And with this, I wish you a very nice evening. And thank you again, Pernille and Manuela, for your great work.
For me, it was a pleasure.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
And please connect with us.
Yes,
Thank you.
it's important.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.